Oh, hello everybody. That seemed to pretty much work as normal, I think, as far as I can tell. Yeah, funny, because I changed to the new Facebook Live. It's funny how things can panic us, you know. Changed to the new Facebook, look. Couldn't find how to start a live video. Anyway, live stream, couldn't find it. And then I remembered, of course, that now I don't start it on Facebook anymore because I stream to YouTube and Facebook at the same time. In fact, I stream to two places on Facebook at the same time. Facebook, my own Facebook profile, and the Art of Calm group. So I'm sending out 3 streams at once. Hello, Olaf. Hi, Miriam. You have no idea how glad I am to see you post in the comments so that I know that you can see it. Actually, to be fair, I don't know that, but I'm hoping that you can. So please let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me okay. Hello, Brian. Hi, Ginia. Hello, Georgia. Thank you. Great. We did it. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I started it in exactly the same way as I always start it. It's just the new look freaked me out, and I thought, oh, I've got to find this thing. I don't need to find it, because the way this works is I stream out to a service called Restream, restream.io, if anybody's interested in streaming to more than one destination at the same time. And then they take my single stream that I send to them, and they squirt it out to the various places I've asked them to squirt it out to, which is 2 Facebook places and YouTube. So actually I did it exactly the same as I normally do it. And it was fine. So apologies for being a bit late, and thank you for waiting. Hello, Loretta. Hi, Joel. Nice to see you. Hello. Hello, Renata. Nice to see you. Hi, Blake. Thank you. That's good to know. Hello, Renee. Nice to see you. Hi, Cindy. Unfortunately, the funny thing about the way that the messages work, because it also has this wonderful feature where it pulls the messages from all the different places into one screen for me so I can keep up with them. It unfortunately means that when I type a message, it only sends it to YouTube. And also, some people come up showing as Facebook user. So I'm sorry for some of you, I don't actually know who you are. I don't know why that should be. But overall, it's kind of YouTube. I may have said YouTube. Yeah, it's this new video site called YouTube, run by Hugh Jackman. Yeah, it's excellent. Anyway, do you want to see the painting that I finished last week? Shall we start with that today? Let's bring. Oh, I've got a little spider on my palette. Let me bring up all the cameras first. Huge tube. I might have said huge tube. I'm not sure. Hope you have all seen. I've posted a photo of the setup I've got today. Let me get out of the way so that you can see it. I went out into the garden this morning. It was a little bit blustery last night. I went out into the garden this morning, and I think this is the last. These are the last of the daffodils that I'm going to get from the garden now. It looks very much like it's the end of the daffodil season now. There might be the odd place around about where they're a bit sheltered, and I might find some. So I thought, well, I'm going to get all the ones that are all right, and I'm going to stick them in a pot, and I'm going to try and paint them all at once. So it's a little bit like the one I did last week. Now I'll change the cameras. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so there is the palette and panel. Here's the reference, which of course, as usual, I'm not going to actually be painting from that. I'm going to be painting, I'm just going to move it over the side to obscure my nose. I'm going to be painting from the actual setup, and also the leaf that's in front of the pot to the right, I've changed. It's now pointing diagonally the opposite direction, which seemed like it would be nicer compositionally to me. Am I really quiet? No, I'm all right. I think I'm all right. Okay. Yeah, sometimes you get little errors and then it comes back. Facebook is pretty flaky. YouTube is a lot more stable. Oh, you're off work, David. Oh, right. Day one of lockdown. We're on about day, I'm not sure how many days we're on. Quite a few. Hello, Ruth. Nice to see you. Says the daffodils may be finishing, but the dandelions are coming on a treat in my garden. Yeah, they are in mine. Actually, we have a huge back garden. We rent this place, and there's a huge back garden I have to keep on top of. So I was trimming it with one of those big petrol trimmers, and I left all the dandelions, so that I've got these little tufts of grass with dandelions growing in them. And the bluebells are coming too. What was I going to do? This is the painting of the oxlips, which also came from the garden, which I finished last week. I didn't do an awful lot more after the stream ended, apart from finish this little pot. I did a little bit more around here. I may have done some tweaking here and there, but mostly it's kind of as it was. It didn't change a lot, I don't think. So what was interesting about this one for me was painting all of these flowers as a mass and then refining them gradually. And I'm going to try and do the same thing today because I've got so many daffodils to paint. There's no way, that I'm going to be able to paint each flower individually, especially since some of them I suspect are on their last legs anyway. So apologies if I'm quiet today. I'm probably not going to talk as much as usual because I've set myself quite a difficult challenge, I think, today. It was a lot to do with, because I once I was out in the garden, I realised that it's very likely that I won't get to do another daffodil painting this year. I've done about 10 or 11, I think. This may be the last one, so I just wanted to do a big one to see if I could use the same approach that I've been slowly evolving bit by bit. And the same approach I used on those little oxlips. They're a kind of primula. See if I could do the same thing here. If you've been on any of the other streams, I'm going to do this one exactly the same way, which is why I'm getting some linseed oil first. Get some terps out, although I don't often use it, sometimes to clean the brush. Pure gum terps, and the palette probably needs a bit of a wipe down. How are you all doing? Are you okay? You holding it together? It's been quite a... David's saying he's just gone into lockdown now. Because you're a key worker, aren't you, David? I'm guessing. For what you do, you would have been a key worker. And I've got to be honest. I'm not gonna pretend that everything is fine here. Mostly things are great. The kids are having a wonderful time. We're homeschooling them effectively, as everybody is with their kids these days, if they can. And they're coming on really, really well, really fast. Individual attention is a wonderful thing. And they love being at home more because we've got a big garden and it's been nice weather. But I've been having anxiety dreams and nightmares every night. Sometimes twice a night. Last night I had a couple of particularly horrendous nightmares, one in the middle of the night and then one woke me up at about 5. I don't know where they come from. There's some deep-seated worry that I don't feel so much during the day. It hits me when I'm asleep. That's been, it's been pretty unpleasant. Good night. Oil. I'm going to get this panel completely covered. And I have in mind that this painting is going to be another one where there's no deep shadows. I haven't done my thing of casting a shadow across the background, which I often do. So it's going to be more in feel. It's going to be more like the last one, a lighter painting. that's just linseed oil. I'm going to put on, what am I going to put on it? Near neutral. Titanium white. Wayne says, "You're not unusual, Paul. We're all anxious, especially in the US." Yeah, I bet you are. I bet you are. Nigel says, "Why start with oil?" Because it allows me to, it gives a very slick surface to work into, which I'm really enjoying these days. I'm painting into a couch or couche, a layer of oil. I'm going to wipe most of it off because there's too much on there at the moment, but I'm going to tone the canvas and then I'm going to wipe it off. It's a linen panel. Ivory black, raw umber, and white. It gives me, I mean, look how easily that goes on. You know, you can make very calligraphic brush marks. I'm going to wipe most of this off anyway, but it allows you to paint fairly thinly and make corrections easily if you need to. It also allows for very fine edge handling from very soft edges to very sharp. It's especially easy to get very soft edges. And it has, the painting seems to have a longer open time as well. So the flowers, I'm just thinking about, I'm going to use my, if I can find it, my little viewfinder. Giving myself an idea of where I want things to go. I want the flowers to be up here and I want them to come off. On the photo I haven't cropped it, it's a slightly different aspect ratio than this panel. But I want the flowers to be, I'm going to crop them so the spread of flowers actually comes off the edge. It's going to be a big bunch around here. That's the main kind of light section. It's going to be all around there. And then a couple more coming off here. Just to kind of decide where things are going to go. One that's about halfway, the one about here, and the one at the back is going to be like about there probably. So this is the point where I'm semi-drawing and semi just kind of working out in really broad general terms where things are going to go, you know, compositionally. So most of the upper half of the painting really is going to be taken up by the flowers. You know, I think it helps to work like really generally to start with. And then you can refine as you want. You know, sort out the drawing once I've got a rough idea of generally where things are going to be. Not quite out to halfway, but pot is going to be. The pot is just going to be central, you know, so it'll be about there. Very ghost-like, but pretty much see what I'm going to want to put in. Some bits, you know, will stay, hardly need any changing at all, like this bit at the bottom here, like as not, that I just painted on there, that won't change. Cast shadow over the pot. So now I want my lightest light and my darkest dark, and I do have some little highlights on the pot. It says I have a hard time painting due to anxiety. I know what you mean. I do know what you mean. I find this is a lot of the reason I'm doing these streams, and it's also good for me too. While I'm actually painting, I forget about all that stuff. You know, the other thing I would say is helps me forget. There's spending time with, you know, if you happen to have a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old boy in the house, that kind of helps. Because they're just so, nothing touches them. They're so daft and funny, and they take me out of the worry a little bit. And playing music is the other thing. I play violin. It helps me as well. Anything that can take you out of yourself. I'll tell you it's a good drawing exercise, I think, something I used to do a lot when I had an office job. I used to disappear off at lunchtime, try and find a little park, find a little piece of nature, just a twig sometimes, or a bud, or flower, small flower, and just do an outline drawing of it really, really carefully. And anything that you can kind of become absorbed in is a help, I think. So I'm thinking, as soon as I've got things in the right position, roughly, then that next thing I'm thinking about is the next most important thing after the composition placement is value balance. So first I want my lightest light. So I've got titanium white all over myself somehow. There's not really a highlight on the main body of the jug. But the handle is going to come right out, actually. There is a highlight on the handle. Don't know if that's going to be in the right place yet. I just want the note. Just as a reference, there's actually a couple of highlights on the spout too, which is interesting. Even though the spout is pretty much in shadow. I'm pretty sure I'll be changing the position of these, but I mostly want the mark. And the darkest dark, well, there's the green here, shadow of the stems, then the base, the pot. I think I'm gonna, before I get too involved in anything else, I'm gonna sort out the ellipse at the base. That's something I want to. I don't want to have to be trying to fix that later. I say it's gonna come about there. Right down the middle. A little bit to the right, doesn't really matter. It's the top one. Tulips is ready. Well, Elaine says, does that panel come with a gold tone, or is it just how it appears? It's slightly yellowed. It's oil, and I suspect has a fair amount of linseed oil in the paint that they use. It won't be the highest quality, and it yellows a bit. They probably painted it with lead white, I would guess, some time ago, and they do yellow a little bit, or primed canvases. Sometimes they put zinc in them to counteract the yellowing, which is, it's not the end of the world if it's a panel, I don't think, but it is the end of the world if it's a stretched canvas, because zinc is brittle. And obviously a stretched canvas will move around quite a bit, which is the last thing you want. And something that's moving is brittle paint. So zinc is best avoided. So for me, if I've got an oil primed panel and it's slightly yellowed, I tend to take that as a sign that it's all right. Got zinc in it. This one I think I will, I know it's going to be a lot shallower, so I'm going to wing this one. I'll probably regret it later, but so there's less of it. Shadow. And that is where that leaf is now. I've got it pointing out this way, you know. Green. I'm going to put this dark in here. I probably won't bother with putting, but it is, I guess, I don't know. It's going to be, there's a very dark on the bottom of the pot. I'm just going to put that in as a note for now, but the most interesting dark is this one here. That's going to help me more. Thank you for the meaning. Renate says, are you using a pen or a pencil when drawing on the canvas? No, I only ever draw with paint because I don't want anything on here apart from paint. So this is just a chisel, flat synthetic brush. Yes, it is. It's very pretty, isn't it? I can't remember. I got this ages ago, and I'm not sure if I've ever painted it. I've certainly been meaning to for a while, and I just needed something about that size today. I'm going to mix a couple of greens. I'm going to need a lot of this yellow, so let's just squeeze it all out. Another empty tube. So I'm just going to get the colours out as I'm going to use them. Phthalo green, this is Winsor & Newton, Winsor green yellow shade. So green will have a blue, which is ivory black, which is actually a blue, so it should really be called ivory blue. Stick some yellow in it. Make it green. Add some chroma and put it towards a blue-green because these stems are more blue-green. So this is the phthalo green. Now obviously that's very dark at that point. Let's take a little bit out and put some white with it and see. Be easier to see what colour I've really got there. Low chroma. Probably going to want a little bit more chroma. And maybe a little bit more towards yellow, so the yellow will add chroma. So I'm getting gradually lighter, you know, it's going more towards a green yellow as it's moving up the value range. That might be sorry, towards a yellow green. That might be too yellow. Let's see. And for these kind of bits, I usually use roughish hog. This is a Cornelison's filbert hog. So I'm just looking at that shape, that green shape, not trying to draw anything apart from just get the shape in somewhere like the right place. And it's just one, I'm just doing it as one dark shape. And for those stems, they're quite hard-edged, so I think this is a Winsor & Newton Scepter Gold. It's a bright flat. It's going to make the kind of brush strokes that are going to probably be closer to how that actually looks there. How those stems look. So the flowers being the most important bit, I'm going to establish the light and the shadow for the flowers. Now I have obviously this being my 10th or 11th or something daffodil painting in the last few weeks, I've got some idea where I'm going with these now. You can probably see I've got all my little pencil chips on the bottom of my palette there. So I've already done some thinking about the colours because they're all different, you know, they're all different. Light and shadow. So for the lighter daffodils, there's two kinds here. The lighter, more lemon yellow ones, that's light and shadow for the radial petals. Light, and I haven't got a shadow, but I'll mix it for the trumpet. Light and shadow for the radial petals of the other ones. Light and shadow for the trumpet. This is the pot. PY 74, that's Hansi Yellow, and Michael Harding, this one is called, he calls it Yellow Lake. Apparently can be a little bit fugitive from some manufacturers. Cad yellow may not use, but it's helpful because I can mix in a little of it to make it more opaque, because these two yellows are very translucent, they don't cover well. Yellow ochre, pretty sure I'm going to need for the pot. Low-ish chroma yellow. Michael Harding green gold. For shadows. Next to it, Williamsburg gold brown to pull the hue. Quinacridone gold brown to pull the hue more towards orange yellow if I need to. The cloth. Now for the cloth, it has a slightly violet, very slight violet cast to it, and I tend to bring that out a little bit more because it just works really nicely against the yellow. So I've got quinacridone rose and ultramarine. Oh, Lisa says, I've stayed connected to painting by watching you. Thank you, that's really nice to know. But you haven't been able to paint because your studio's closed and your paints are there. Oh no. Can you draw, or could you get maybe just some raw umber and black and white delivered and do some value studies perhaps in the meantime? You're always going to use, well, I don't know if you use raw umber, but you're always going to use black and white, right? So it won't be a waste, I wouldn't think. Just a thought. Yeah, zinc white. Give it a wide berth, Elaine, yeah. If you have a look on the Painting Best Practices group on Facebook, run by George O'Hanlon, who knows rather a lot about materials and runs Rublev, this company here. It makes various paints, and I've never used any of the paints because the pigments are kind of esoteric recreations, a lot of them anyway, esoteric recreations of paints that the old masters used, and I'm not that bothered about that, but the mediums are great, and George is very knowledgeable. You see, a stroke like that would be, you couldn't do it without oil down first. It works really well for daffodil stems. And for flowers in general, I find if you want to make, you know, to have a kind of, be careful, Paul, I'm going to lose my paint. kind of calligraphic brush strokes. Want a little bit of that in your painting, it really works well for that. So I'm just visually kind of sorting out where things are going to go at the moment. I'm just trying to, you know, I'm using these as a guide for where the flowers are going to go. So the crucial bit of the yellows of the daffodils is the lightest light on the lightest part of the daffodils. I need that bit to show, and then everything else will come somewhere between those and the darks. So that's really important. I want it to be slightly darker than the highlight on the pot, so that still works as a highlight. So I'm mixing the local of the colour of the radial petals, which I've already checked. And I check it again every time I do a painting. I don't have like recipes like, I want to paint what's there. While I'm on, let's do shadow. Those petals too. It's too yellow and too high chroma, so I can add a little bit of black to counteract the yellow and drop the chroma. Actually, I'm not sure it is. Value needs to come down, so I'm going to put raw umber. Just because I've got a yellow, and raw umber isn't going to give it too much chroma. I want the chroma to be fairly low. Light brush, shadow brush, light shadow. There's a point, the very lightest part. Back of that, it goes into shadow. So at the moment, I want to see if they're likely to work. Then I want now, I mean, it would be useful to have this, the background would be probably the most useful thing to have. To set the background against these. So there's just up from there is a couple of petals that are against the background. I'm trying to make sure, although they're very loosely painted and 100% accurate. I'm trying to make sure that they're in the right place. That relationship for the background. The background I'm going to be mostly neutral. It's mostly the value I'm interested in more than anything. Just thinking about the relationships. I think the shadow side of the pot is a similar value to the background. I'm going to check that. A bit darker. Shadow side of the pot is slightly darker. So, see how the pot would look against the background. The light is about as light as the lightest daffodil, I think. Yeah. So I'm just thinking about relationships now. Gail, I was saying that zinc white is brittle, has a reputation for being brittle. The stems are coming too high up the pot. Way too high. This is the kind of thing, this is quite handy about having a panel like this. Just take it off. A slick panel with an oil ground. It's very easy to make changes. Yellow trumpet there. There's a little note for myself for later. There's going to be a yellow trumpet. Around there. So this is like classic negative space. I'm just looking for shapes. If you've ever done any negative space practice drawing, it's really good for this kind of just laying things out. But what I'm mostly thinking about is value relationships. So I want this value to be fairly down. There is shadow here, so it'd be fairly down near this, but there to be a definite difference still. So that if I've got a leaf here, as there is in the subjects, like coming up here, a stem, that it will show as slightly darker than the background. That one's in shadow, so it would be deep value. So I'm looking at that relationship there, trying to make sure that works. This is the kind of, lately I've been thinking of this and referring to it as a dance of bringing values up and taking them back down and trying to sort out the balance overall so there's a feeling of light. I'm going to try and get the shadow side of the pot in next. darker, slightly darker than the background, but not as dark as the leaves. So you're not so much, I mean, there's partly I'm looking at that relationship there, you know, and making sure that I can see that against that, but it's the whole of the picture that I'm trying to think about. Bit of chroma in the shadow. It's dark, actually. Needs to be, actually, because the background is darker here in shadow, it needs to be almost the same value as the background really there. I wonder if I'm bringing it down too low. Maybe I should bring the value of the background up. I think the background's too dark. It doesn't really matter too much. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, but you know, some parts of it really do need to be good, but the background is like, I just want to need to make sure that it's going to work. I'm just worried that the pot is going to come out too dark on the shadow side if I the same value there. Because I want a light painting overall. I still want the flowers to stand out, but if that was going to be the shadow side of the pot. The cloth in as well. It's always a little bit tricky at this stage, trying to decide what's going to go where. The shadow here wants to be about the same value as this part of the pot here. I'm going to put in a little bit of the cloth now so I can see where that's going to sit. Value balance. I don't want to paint any of it, the detail of it, I just want an idea of where it's going to be, the value balance. So I've just mixed a higher and a lower chroma version. This is basically almost a neutral and this is slight violet. Value is, let's check the value against the side of the pot. I think it's going to be about the same. The light side of the pot. Slightly darker. And that would make sense because although this, the local of this is lighter than that, this side of the pot is facing directly to the light, so it has more light on it, so I need a darker. I need that to be darker, this to be darker. And that ought to help to show that there's light, you know, all kind of, they're like visual cues, kind of, to show that there's light hitting this part of the pot here. There'll be some drop off as it moves away. Cast shadow. Still is very light. In the overall value balance, it's still very light, the cast shadow. This is nice. This daffodil here is going to be going right off. So yeah, right off the edge of the panel. Drawing problem. Hello, big lad, you alright? Are you wanting to take the laptop?
Yes, I am.
Could you take it quietly, please? Don't move the book away, okay? Because I need that book there. I'm trying to figure out, I've got some drawing problems here. I'm trying to figure out. I think this is too low and too small. Should come out to there. Should come back to here.
I think that looks good.
Thank you. I haven't done much yet.
Well, the start of it is the most important bit.
That's right. You're not wrong. You've been listening.
Somehow. I've not been spying on you.
Oh. Okay.
I didn't move the book.
Thank you, good lad. That's cool. sorry, Marianne, I'm not sure which brush you were talking about, the bright. If it's this one, then this is a bright, yeah. I just like it because it has a really chisel edge. Chisel flat, that's just what I call them. Yeah, it's a bright. That's nice, Elaine. Thank you, Cynthia. Yeah, I'm trying to keep this. I'm trying to start to sort out the value. So you will. I could have the background darker than this. You will probably have heard me talk about the value balance quite a bit, and how I go up the value scale quite quickly to make a lighter overall painting. That's, you know, it means that the flowers might not stand out quite as much, but so let's see if we can just get some very general shapes in there. So, you know, looked at as a mass, this pretty much all of this is light. So I'm going to try and approach this the same way that I approached the oxlips that I painted, where I painted a mass and then decided where overall shapes of light and shadow were, and then gradually sort of worked into it from there. But I want the mass to be in the right place. Oh dear. Oh dear, little fella. Someone's been eating grass. I think I may have some drawing problems. Yeah. I'm just gradually sort of changing the position of things as I go, trying to get them into the right relationship with each other. So this is actually not at all where I painted it. It's light. So I want to get to a point as soon as I can where if I squint right down and look at the painting, that I start to have an impression of the shape of the flowers, like the overall shape, and a bit of a feeling of light and shadow. And I can't really see, you know, until I get, to me at least, until I get all of these colours in and the panel covered, I can't really see how things are going to match up and work against each other. So this is, for me, this is like where I do the thinking. very glad I've got a photo to work from, because I have a feeling that a lot of this is going to change quite a lot. So this one over here is almost entirely in shadow, so it gives me a chance to try my shadow colour. Against the background, you see, it still needs to show as light against that background. That's a relationship I have to keep. It needs to read as shadow. I know, little man. It needs to read as shadow for the daffodil, but it also needs to be sufficiently lighter than the background to show against that. And that's like an important relationship for me to get set up, you know, shadow, those like very simplified shadow and light relationships. I tried to get those sorted out very early on. And rather than having to spend a lot of time doing corrections later, hopefully, if I'm about right. It's very light painting. May bring some of the values down. Back down again. Let's get in some of the lighter yellow. Did you want out? You want out? Careful. Yes, Ginia says, could you post the finished painting on your page? I keep forgetting to post the finished ones. I do keep forgetting to do that. I don't know if have you seen this one finished? This is the other one that I did with the teapot. These are the same kind of daffodils, actually. Very similar colour. That one's finished now. I keep forgetting to post them. And this one I think is finished, but I may do a little bit more on it. I'm not 100% decided, which is why I haven't signed it yet. I think it's probably finished. And then some of them, like I decided that it's this one, for instance, I don't think is a failure, but I don't think I'm going to put it up for auction. Because I'm not that happy about how some of it came out. Some things I like about it, but some of them I just decide to keep because I'm not. Try to keep a kind of what I feel anyway for me is like a kind of a bar of quality, and they don't always pass. And it's entirely personal. It's like, I'm sure some people would think, oh, that's all right, but I just might not feel it's a good example, so I won't sell it. Now, some things I'm putting in, I'm not putting this in just to paint it, I'm putting it in so I can see how that dark value is going to work against the daffodils, because that really needs to stand out as dark, but the background needs to be closer to it, so the background does need to come down there. So really I would want not that dark though. It's all about the relationships, just trying to find relationships that work the best. This, I think, is probably looking a bit better. I want this shape to stand out well, you know. Means this would be darker because there's shadow here. So I brought this back up and now I'm taking it back down again. That's what I mean when I'm talking about what I generally refer to these days as the dance of the values, you know, of deciding where I want them to go, you know, for the benefit of the picture, for hopefully what will be like a more expressive result. All background here. Which would also mean slightly lower value in the shadow of the pot. There's an interesting couple of relationships around here where there's a trumpet that's pointing down that's quite yellow, and then radial petals around it are slightly different local that are shadow. Yeah, I know. Somebody wants picking up. I use different brushes to keep the colours clean, mostly. So, shadow. Sorry, I'm not very talkative today. I'm just having to focus because I've got so much to do with this painting. I'm just trying to get, I'm still looking for I'm not happy really that I've found the value balance yet. I'm still looking for it. I think it's probably close, but you know, I need these to seem a lot lighter than these. Everything has to relate. This is too dark against this. It's easy to push little areas wrong and then you just lose the relationship. Starting to come though. It's got a little bit blown out. I'm going to bring the exposure of that camera down a little bit. Little bit blown out. Hopefully you can see it a little bit better now. There's a lot of different relationships I'm trying to sort out. At the moment, I would say in the overall painting, this I'm quite happy with. This I'm quite happy with. And that works all right against this. I'm not sure about this value here. I think the background's probably okay. I think, you know, most of it is probably okay. It's at least it's not, I wouldn't call it a start yet until I get quite a bit more done and I can really see what the relationships are going to be, and I'm not quite there yet, don't think. Close, and I think some of it is beginning to work, but not quite there. It's hard really, I think it's hard until the whole thing is pretty much covered. It's difficult to see really. I find so anyway. It's beginning to come. And the handle and the spout, by the way, I'm going to deal with them once I've got the value relationship sorted out. If I'd rather not be painting and repainting them, so I'm going to try and make sure that the values are pretty good first. And I'm still kind of, I mean, I suppose in a way it's a slightly tricky way to paint because you're dealing with everything at the same time, you know. Drawing, values, colour, or like all at once. But it's a very interesting way to paint, I think. It certainly keeps you focused because you've got to really concentrate. I'm just starting to feel like I may be at the point where I want to take a bit of a break. should actually be shadow. See that? So I'm putting those leaves in so I can get an idea of how they're going to work against the background. I've got the background, I think, probably slightly lighter than it actually is, but I want this light feel as long as I can still keep a feeling of those flowers standing out. So far, so good. That's actually where the spout is going to come there. Oh, yellow. All right, never good. Yeah, it's feeling a little bit to me like this is the kind of the deciding area at the moment. I've got dark leaf against the daffodil against the background, so I can kind of see in a way there, you know, a bunch of relationships all at once. I think they'll probably be there. Elizabeth, at the beginning I put a layer of linseed oil onto the painting, and then I painted into it with like a neutral and then white colour, and then wiped most of it off. So it gives me a slick surface to paint on. So the paint goes on very easily, and it's also easy to manipulate the edges, and I can do like single strokes for things like these leaves. Hopefully some of that I'll be able to keep, you know. They will obviously have, they'll have cast shadows. Under them, you know, which will show, you know, that there's 3 dimensions there. Cast shadows are responsible for a lot of what creates life and depth in a painting, I think. This cast shadow back here needs to be a little darker. I think it's not really showing any form. So I've been zeroed in on those flowers for a bit, and I'm kind of zooming back out again, you know, to try and look at everything again a little bit and see what I feel might be working and what isn't. Starting to feel that there's some depth behind this now. It's mostly to do with getting the values. Why didn't you paint the flowers first? It would seem to make sense to paint them first because they're going to move. Some of them may die and I may not even get the painting finished. But this way of painting, I need to be working across the whole surface at once. So this is, you know, it does mean in some ways perhaps a less refined painting, but then I've always got the photo if I need to sort out some detail later. But what will be difficult for me to do from the photo is to sort out the value balance. I feel I really need the thing in front of me to be able to do that part well. What would I be painting after this? Diane says. I have no idea, but I think probably not daffodils. But at the moment I'm just trying to look at the overall, you know, if I squint right down and I look at the subject and I look at this, am I starting to feel, you know, that there's something there, you know, I'm getting a feeling of light and shadow and form, and that it's not becoming kind of too heavy, that the flowers are still going to be light. I'm going to keep the chroma, and they're going to sit right, you know, against the background. That's a lot of what I'm after at this point, really. I want some more in this shadow part. So around here, there's areas of shadow, you know, which I'm just thinking a little bit about now, where they would be. So I can start just to do the first kind of beginnings of modeling this area in light and shadow. Just to get, you know, and if the colours are right, you know, then it will give me, if the colours are going to work, it will give me a bit of a feeling of light and shadow there before I've even, you know, resolved any forms or anything like that. Just give me an idea if I'm in the right ballpark or not. And also help me to start drawing things out a little bit. Like, one of the main changes I'm seeing at the moment is I want more chroma in the shadows of these flowers. That's looking better to me. A little that heavy. Yes, Elizabeth, yes, I use linseed oil almost entirely. If I want to, if I want the paint to go on a little bit more thinly, then yeah, linseed oil. So there's not a lot of different things on the painting, you know. It's basically paint and oil. I think that's probably a good idea. It's a little bit. Got a bit more light coming in the studio, so it's getting a little bit blown out now. The camera on the painting. Ooh, 2 hours. Wow, that was a fast 2 hours. I hadn't realised the time had gone so quickly. Agel says, did you make the paint chips or did you buy them? They actually come from the Munsell Big Book of Colour. Munsell Big Book of Colour it's very expensive, but it's I use Munsell basically to control the colour, and that's where they come from. Oh, Heather, thank you. Heather's already told you. Everybody knows now. People who are used to me banging on about stuff while I paint. Yeah, I use Munsell to control the colour, to keep it where I want it to be. Yeah, Alison says, your comments on value relationships have been incredibly helpful. I worry less about getting the colour right and more to get the relationships right. Yeah, that's right. That's the thing. But I would say what I tried to do is I tried to get the chroma and the hue absolutely nailed, and then I allow myself a lot more leeway with the values because we're severely limited in our in the value range of paint compared to what we see in nature. And there's a lot you can do to create an impression of something, of light, but you need to be able to manipulate the values to do that. So I try as much as I can to be very accurate on the hues. And the chroma. Usually, I mean, a lot of the time, if it's something like this, I'm just getting the highest chroma I can get. I just want that to stand out, that chroma in the painting. Chroma is about relationships as well, to an extent, and it's heavily linked with value. But yeah, it's all about the value relationships, really. Thank you, Pam. You're very welcome. Oh, I didn't put. No, I didn't. I'll put the credits on at the end for the music. Oh, good question from Jim. What's the best way to get a dark, high chroma green? Well, this is how I generally do mine. It depends on the hue. I mean, if you're after a blue green, then it's easy, phthalo greens. But if you want something that's a bit more towards like a yellowish green, then the way I do it now, this is based on, I found a nice high chroma or high-ish chroma sap green that I liked, and then read the pigments and realized that it was a mix of ivory black, or it was a black, I don't know if it was ivory black, and an arylide yellow. So this is PY3, Michael Harding, bright yellow lake, he calls it. And then this will swing it back towards a blue green. This is phthalo green. Now this is Winsor & Newton. Windsor green yellow shade. So that's pretty low value and pretty high chroma. There you go. If you want it to go more yellow green, you will lose some chroma. Sorry, I was a little bit late answering that. Yep, mostly straight out of the tube, the colours are, but I'm using linseed oil. Wow, that camera's getting, exposure's really getting blown out. Let me bring down that camera a little bit to more reasonable levels. It's interesting, the photo that I take of the setup always has a wider value balance than the painting, because photos have a wider value balance than paint. It's a backlit photo on a screen. Yeah, it does take focus. I mean, all the time while I'm doing that, Ginia, I'm looking across from one part to another about the relationships and squinting down and looking back. It does take focus, and it is mentally tiring to paint this way. It's, you know, it's why a lot of people will be, I guess, more likely to take a kind of divide and conquer approach, where you perhaps just do the values and the drawing first and then think about the colour. But I like to play with them all at the same time, not the drawing so much, but the values and the colour. I like to kind of push. A dance is the best way to describe it, I think, to try and get the best balance, you know, to keep the highest chroma where I need it, and get the values how I want them to work. How many colour pages are in the big book? I'm not sure actually, but I think there's about 1,600 chips, about 6. Because the old one came in 2 volumes. But basically you have, there are different hue areas, like yellow, and then within the yellow there are 4 pages for yellow. And then you have yellow-green, and there are 4 pages for yellow-green. And then you have green, and there are 4 pages for green. Then you have blue-green, and there are 4 pages for blue-green. So there's a lot of pages, there's a lot of chip. But you will still often find that you want colours that are between chips. But it's like, I think of it as like a map to the colour space that you can hit with paint. So if you're trying to hit a particular colour, you know, and you realise that it's not in the book, the chances are that you won't be able to hit it. Sometimes you can outdo the chroma a little bit. You don't always want the highest chroma you can, but you know, sometimes you do. I think I'm probably I would say probably reasonably happy with the colour relationships that I've got going on in there at the moment. You know, it's a bit of a struggle to find how you can get the most out of what's available in paint. Really. There's a subtle hue shift here that I'm not really getting, so I'm going to have to address that hue change. But I think I'm gonna stop the stream here, because I didn't actually I thought I'd been going for about an hour. I didn't realise I'd been going so long. For anyone who stayed for the whole of the stream, thanks for your patience. You're amazing. I will be. The sunlight is starting to come into the studio now. I don't know if I'm going to continue with this painting or not tomorrow. If I do, these daffodils are really going to change overnight. So it's probably going to have to be largely finished from the photo. So I'm going to have to go with the value balance that I've got now. But I'm fairly pleased with it. I think it's working all right. I think it will be okay. So I may just continue with it from the photo from here, because I've got the initial kind of the balance set down, and we'll see how we go. Thanks very much for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're not having anxiety dreams like me, or if you are, I hope this helps you forget about them a little bit for a short time. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you again tomorrow.